Yeah, it's hard to tell. First of all, our contract, as Bob laid out, is larger than Cboe's. It's 5 Bitcoins per contract versus 1 for 1. So that's a big difference, attracting the institutional participant versus the retail participant. Our goal and objective here is to manage the risk of the product, not to determine what the price level is. I want to be cautious. I think the SEC made a really good comment that Jay Clayton made about, you got to be careful of this product. It's new, and there's no question about it. So the last thing I want to have happen is participants that have never traded futures contracts before to enter into CME's markets and be trading Bitcoin futures. So we are targeting the more professional type trader and the institutional investor.
Mr. Duffy, it's Karen. Let me ask you something. Let's say you were to see hugely wild swings in Bitcoin, which of course anyone can imagine. Let's say it went 500% up. Can you imagine a scenario where you change your margin requirements as a result of very big moves either way?
Karen, that's a good point, and absolutely, we will change our margins if we see any activity like that. As you've seen already, we already made a change in our margin from 35 to 47% on initial, and then the maintenance margin will be a minimum of 43%. That's even before we even launched the product. We've already had to move it. So this is something that we pay a lot of attention to, and it's what I've been outlining all along, Karen, is the risk management protocols the CME has in place. And if, in fact, this thing starts to move precipitously, our margins will increase, our velocity logic will kick in, and all the other functions we have as well will kick in.
Do you plan on perhaps introducing a product that might appeal more to the retail investor, like a mini product, for instance, for Bitcoin futures?
I think that is yet to be determined. I think we're going to do a wait and see how this contract trades. One of the things that you're looking at, a lot of these brokerage firms don't want to jump in, and there's a reason why they don't want to jump in. They want to see open interest, which are positions open in a clearinghouse at a certain level. They want to see a certain amount of trade, and until that happens, you're not going to attract anybody else. So we need to be focused on this particular contract, build some open interest, build some trade, and then the bylaws and covenants of certain brokers will allow participants to come into the marketplace.
Hey, Terry, it's Guy. Thanks for being on. So I know you're growing organically, but what about, have you considered growing by acquisition? Like Coinbase, I think, has 13 million users, 32 countries. I'm not asking you specifically about them, but is that a thought out there in CME land?
Guy, right now, I'm really focused, as you know. I like things that drop to the bottom line as far as targeted acquisitions go. This is a new product line for us, so we'll keep this just to the futures contract. We're looking at things that we think can enhance our customer experience. That's a big part of what I'm trying to accomplish here at CME Group. Grow the institutional base, grow the commercial base, and in return, grow the clients completely. So that's where we're at right now on that. So on the cash side of the trade on Bitcoin, I don't think it's something that we have a great interest in. We don't regulate that today, although we have the ability, Guy, which I think is interesting, with our offering, we have the ability to do audit functions on the 4 exchanges that Bob Pisani outlined at the beginning of the show here, and that's different than our competitors do, so we will be keeping a close watch on this.
How big do you think this will be for CME? In other words, how much money do you think you can make off of this? Will this impact earnings, Terry? Are we going to see upward revisions to earnings reports in the future?
So, Melissa, we don't do anything that we think is just going to be doing it for the sake of doing it because it's popular. We've had a big outreach from clients to get involved in this asset class, which we have. But to predict the potential revenues off this, it would be a fool's errand. I'm not going to even attempt to do it. I want to see how this trades. If you look at the last couple of days at CBOE, what they've been able to trade, I think they traded 1,756 contracts today. They traded a small amount yesterday. So it's off to a decent start. They have a little bit of open interest. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But to try to predict what the potential volumes are in this contract, which turns into revenues, is really hard to do.
All right. Terry, I got to ask you about this too, because obviously one concern about a futures contract that trades on a product that's not regulated is what happens if somebody tampers with that exchange. Already we've seen Bitfinex, which is the largest Bitcoin exchange by volume. They've been in a denial of service attack essentially for the past week or so. Is it possible that if somebody had a huge position in futures on the short side, for instance, that they could manipulate the trading on an exchange to their advantage?
Well, that's one of the things that, I talk about all the time is our self-regulatory organization and the process that we have in place with our regulatory department. We monitor for this in all of our asset classes, all of our products here, Melissa. This is really high on our radar screen. We have a lot of people watching this product. We'll be looking for any strange activity, and I assure you this is I've said this many times before, the reputation of CME Group is
Sure.
way too valuable, too valuable.
Would you rather
to rely
have formal exchange? Because, I mean, formal regulation of the exchanges, because basically your product is going to rely on the pricing of 4 Bitcoin exchanges. I'm sure the CME has better things to do with its time and money than try and regulate the trading on 4 different exchanges, which we have seen in the past week. The exchanges do not respond well technologically to high spikes in volume, and that really plays into a manipulator's hands.
Well, Melissa, what's important here is we do very well with high demand, with high volatility, with high trade. So that's one of the things that we are very good at. And when you bring in a regulated futures market like CME with the distribution and the platforms that we have, that will help mitigate some of the problems in the cash market as well. So, you know, they go hand in hand. There's a reason why it's called a derivative, and people use both the cash and the futures products here to manage their risk. So, you know, I see us helping mitigate some of the problems that are going on right now in the cash market.